Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to this opening session of Switch, the biggest ICT and entrepreneurship event ever in the Baltic region, with more than 5,000 visitors expected over the next 2 days. Many of you already here. It's fantastic to see this great room so full. We have more than 110 speakers from 15 EU countries coming here to talk to you over the next 2 days. So much to discuss, many exciting sessions. My name is Jackie Davis. I have the privilege of moderating this session and some of our other sessions this morning. Just to tell you a little bit about the event before we get underway, there are 3 parts running in parallel. Switch Youth, inspirational presentations for future entrepreneurs and IT enthusiasts, all of you in the room who I hope are going to go on to launch the next big thing in IT. Switch Professional, with expert sessions in a moment on the digital single market, on e-government, and there are sessions devoted in that to sharing best practice within the region. And Switch Challenge, a hackathon, e-business creation competition, and the technology zone called Cool and Crazy. This is a meeting place for like-minded people who are interested in our digital future. Please do try, while you're here if you can, not only to be in those sessions that you're most interested in, but to visit the other parts. The slogan of this event is Live Your Passion. I hope we're going to hear a lot of passion from our speakers, but also from all of you. A couple of housekeeping points before we get underway. If you have any questions for speakers, and you don't want to put your hand up, you're a little shy, or you have comments you want to tell the world about what is happening here, please do so via Twitter and Facebook. The Twitter hashtag is SwitchVilnius, and I have a Twitter rapporteur sitting over there. He's going to be monitoring what's coming in on Twitter, and if there are any questions for our opening panel, I will come to him a little bit later on to hear what you've all been saying. Also, the organisers have asked me to stress that they have gone into enormous efforts to make this a paperless event. Yes, I know, I'm breaking the rule before we even start, but I'm a creature of habit, and old habits die very hard. But generally speaking, it's a paperless event. There are no printed programs, but you can build your own program using the special app for this event, which you can find in any app store using the keywords Switch Vilnius. So, one more thing before we get underway. There's one person who we have to thank for making all of this possible. One person backed, I should say, by an absolutely fabulous team of volunteers. And I'd like to welcome him on stage, just to more formally welcome you than me. Member of the European Parliament, Antanas Guaga. Tony, please.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for coming. I'm very proud of our team, our volunteers who are not being paid to work really hard and make this happen. I'm also very thankful to the Commission. I'm very thankful to the Vice President, who's the most progressive politician in the whole world, and I really wish him the best of luck to achieve the digital single market, at least in pockets of the European Union. So this event is also for young people, for professionals, and for all of us to be ahead of the curve. Switch, and let's switch on the switch. Go for it. Let's win.
Thank you very much indeed, Antanas. As you say, as Tony said there, let's go for it. Let's switch on that switch. And we couldn't have a better person to switch on that switch for us than our opening speaker. We're going to talk about Europe's what is called, and forgive the EU jargon, ladies and gentlemen, in Brussels, we like to use words that nobody else has ever heard. So we talk about the digital single market. That is translating the right that all of you have in the offline world to move around freely, to shop where you want, into the online world. And I am honoured to welcome onto the stage Andrus Ansip, Vice President of the European Commission for the Digital Single Market, and of course, former Prime Minister of Estonia, the most progressive politician in the whole world, as Tony said. A very warm welcome. And I should say, before the Vice President starts, he will be joining our panel discussion after this, so if you have questions for him, you will have an opportunity to put them to him later. Mr. Vice President, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. Labas rytas. Good morning to everybody. I would like to say that Antanas Kuoga, he's a really impressive guy, doing really good job, not only here in Lithuania, but also in Brussels. Talking about digital single markets, we have to say that yes, this single market does not exist. But we don't have to start from the scratch. We made decision already to abolish roaming surcharges in the European Union, and I would like to thank Antanas Kuoga also for that. We all know how important it is for our people, especially for young people, not to have those roaming surcharges in the European Union. In the United States of America, people, they don't remember already about roaming surcharges, but in the European Union, people, they still have to think at first when they will start to use their mobile devices in some other countries. This business model is not sustainable. If service providers, they have to say to their customers, don't use my services when in some other countries, then we have to say it's not sustainable business model. And if people, they don't care about this advice and will use those devices in some other countries, once again, they can easily start to hate those service providers because of those bills they have to pay. And once again, we have to say this is not a sustainable business model. But now, decision on political level was made. We will abolish those roaming surcharges since 15th of June 2017. So, but anyway, sorry to say, digital single market does not exist in the European Union. We were able to create single market in physical meaning, but digital single market does not exist, and cost of non-Europe in digital meaning is huge. According to analysis prepared by the European Parliament, this is 415 billion euros per year. And if we will not get very soon this digital single market, this amount of money will increase with the years. So, our aim is to create digital single market in the European Union. What it means? At first, we have to support free movement of goods and services in the European Union. Then it means, so I have to change.
Should just... hang on, help is at hand. Hang on a second.
Okay.
We went too far, there we are.
Yeah. Okay, actions, it's good.
Thank you.
Okay. We have to support free movements of goods and services in digital meaning in the European Union. Today, our market in the European Union is fragmented. We have 28 different regulations, and practically for small and medium-sized companies, it's impossible to understand how those different regulations somewhere are protecting consumers and what kind of obligations our businesses they are getting from those 28 different regulations. So now we would like to propose fully harmonized regulations dealing with digital goods, digital content, and also with tangible goods when we are talking about online sales. As elderly people, they remember we tried fully harmonized consumer protection rules and contracts in the European Union, but it didn't fly. Then common European sales law was proposed, it didn't fly either. And now we would like to provide focused measures mentioned to deal with online sales, and we hope we can support in this way developing in the field of e-commerce in the European Union. Then we have to deal with high parcel delivery prices. Some people think, why? when they are talking about digital single market, they have to deal with parcel delivery prices. But more than 50% of our entrepreneurs and our consumers, they are complaining about high parcel delivery prices we have in the European Union. And in fact, looking on those prices, it's very difficult to understand from where they took those prices. So, as average in the European Union, difference between domestic parcel delivery prices and cross-border prices is 3 to 5 times, and Lithuania is pretty close to this average. But in the country I know best, this difference between domestic prices and cross-border prices is even 9.5 times. I asked why. They said, why not? It's allowed. In one EU member state, this difference between domestic prices and cross-border prices inside of the European Union is even 20 times. So everybody knows that the biggest part from this parcel delivery price has to be created by last mile, which is the most expensive part. But in fact, you cannot see that kind of correlation. Delivery from Belgium, for example, to Poland has to be cheaper, but it's not so. Parcel delivery from Poland to Belgium is much cheaper in real life than in opposite direction. Or let's take Malmö and Copenhagen. Practically the same living standard, but talking about 2 kilograms parcel, delivery from one direction is 42 euros, 42 euros per 2 kilograms. And in opposite direction, 28 euros. Maybe wind is supportive. Nobody knows why there is such kind of difference. And then when I moved in my apartment in Brussels, I bought some carpets from Germany. I paid for huge carpets, 2 by 3 meters, only 8 euros to Deutsche Post. So we are not trying to regulate those parcel delivery prices, but we would like to ask for more transparency, and we hope if there will be transparency, there will be real competition, and our businesses and customers will get affordable prices. So we have to deal also with the geo-blocking. I think you all experienced what this geo-blocking really means. Rerouting is quite common. You would like to buy something from one shop, but they are sending you to another shop, and then of course price for you is a little bit higher in this another shop. But why we have to accept that kind of price discrimination on the 21st century in the European Union? I don't think we have to accept that kind of price discrimination. Then geo-blocking caused by copyright restrictions. Today, approximately 100 million Europeans would like to get access to digital content in some other countries, but they cannot because of copyright restrictions. 271 million trips with at least one overnight stay in another EU member state are made by Europeans during the year. And many of those people traveling in some other EU member states would like to get access to their legally bought content. But they cannot because of copyright restrictions. We have to provide legal access to the digital content to our people. We have to allow portability of the content, and only then we will be able to tackle piracy. So, piracy, as we know, is a huge problem. Approximately 20% of internet users in the European Union are using VPN to get access to digital content. Even 68% of film viewers in the European Union said that they are using so-called free downloads to get access to digital content, to e-books, audiobooks, music, movies. 68%, according to my understanding, It's a huge amount of money which is available. People, they are paying for VPN. I'm absolutely sure they are ready to pay for digital content also, if this digital content will be available legally. So we have also to change our VAT rules. Once again, I would like to say we have to set a threshold for our small companies under which they don't have to declare their revenues, and according to my understanding, this threshold has to be on the level of 100,000 euros, and then there will be much less bureaucracy for small companies. But generally speaking, talking about taxation issues, this one-stop shop system is good, and we have to go on with providing more services using one-stop shop. Then, about our next pillar. Okay. Next pillar, second pillar on which digital single market will be based is about infrastructure and networks. So, as we all know, according to McKinsey, 10% more broadband, it's equal to 1.3% of additional GDP growth. In Lithuania, broadband coverage is in a really good shape. You are practically leaders in the European Union in this meaning, but it's not enough. We have to deal also with the spectrum issues. Without deeper cooperation in the field of spectrum in the European Union, we can just dream about Internet of Things. It will never happen. We have to coordinate our activities in this meaning. Talking about 700 megahertz, we don't have just to cooperate on the level of the European Union. We have to cooperate also in meaning of our negotiations with our neighboring countries, where 700 megahertz, for example, is still in military usage. So we have to keep together, we have to coordinate our activities. Talking about connected cars, about e-medicine, once again we have to say that deeper cooperation in the field of spectrum is needed for us, and we have to go on with those developments. So, as I said in meeting of broadband coverage, Lithuania is doing well, but as you can see from this slide, this picture in the European Union is quite different. There was really glorious time for the European Union when we implemented GSM, 2G technology in Europe. Then Europe had a real leading position in the world. But then with 3G, governments, they started to ask for biggest amount of money. And of course, telecoms, they had to pay biggest amount of money. Governments asked to governments, and then governments, they were happy because they were able to increase salaries of teachers and policemen, and it was good. But we didn't get those new technologies as soon as possible. We got those technologies later on. With the 4G, we know that in some regions, including in Lithuania, governments decided to set concrete conditions, including time limits. Our aim was, or aim of those governments, I was Prime Minister because I'm talking about our aim. Aim of those governments was to cover the country as soon as possible with new generation of network, and setting some concrete conditions, including time limits. You cannot get the biggest amount of money which is available. But I'm absolutely sure those governments who set those concrete conditions, including time limits, they didn't make a mistake. they will get much more money because of their economies. They will grow faster, and people, they will be more happy also. So, and then it's possible to increase once again salaries of teachers and policemen. So, but as I said, to cover the country with the new generation network, with the quality broadband network, it's not enough. Governments have to provide also good services. The third pillar on which digital single market strategy is based is about e-government, about our industry, and once again, we have to say we have to cooperate in meaning of standards in the European Union. Practically, we can find a lot of excellent internet-based e-solutions from all the EU member states, but the huge problem is that we cannot use those excellent solutions in some other member states. Lack of interoperability. This is a problem. So we have to pay much more attention on once only principle, how to use our digital identities cross-border. We have already eIDAS directive, which allows cross-border mutual recognition of digital signatures, but for implementation will take quite a long period of time. We don't have this time. We have to hurry up. So digital by default, this is also one of those main principles we have to pay our attention. And of course, we have to allow free flow of data across the European Union. So data localization is something we don't have to accept in the European Union. We have to pay much more attention on free data flows. So, just a few words about Lithuania. Lithuania is doing well, but you can see that in Lithuania you have to pay much more attention on digital public services. And especially you have to pay, according to my understanding, it's up to up to Lithuanian people to decide what will be good for Lithuania or not. But in comparison with other EU member states, I can say that you have to pay much more attention on e-healthcare issues. E-prescription is something which practically does not exist in Lithuania, sorry to say. In Sweden, 100% of family doctors, or from all the medical doctors, they are issuing e-prescriptions. During the crisis, they implemented this system in Greece, and now 90-95% from all the medical doctors, they are issuing e-prescriptions. I remember that in the year 2013, only 0.45% of general practitioners in Lithuania, they issued e-prescriptions. If you will pay a little bit more attention on those issues, then you will take a really leading position in meaning of DESI index.
Briefly, if you would now, Mr. Vice President, so we can discuss all these issues with our panel.
In the European Union. So, my message is we have to create a digital single market in the European Union. It will be beneficial for us, but it's not just about a huge amount of money. But money is really important, 415 billion euros per year. It's also about fundamental rights, and that's why we have to create digital single market in the European Union. Ačiū labai. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and please do come and join me. Thank you, and so many interesting issues to discuss there. And what we want to focus on now in this session is discussing in some depth, I hope, how the EU can go about realizing that ambition of a truly connected digital single market. How do you make progress on all those three pillars that you identified? What are the opportunities that are opening up for traditional companies, but also for all the startups and all of you, the younger generation in this room, who hopefully will be able to take advantage of that revolution? And how do we foster and inspire the entrepreneurship that is needed to really take advantage of all of that? That's what we're going to discuss here. And as the Commissioner said, we're not starting from scratch. But there's a hell of a long way to go, and the cost of not doing it is enormous. So let's bring up our panel, and we'll dive straight into that discussion. Joining the Commissioner, Tony, and I on stage to discuss this, Anu Daugavlis, who is Deputy State Secretary for ICT and e-Government at the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Regional Development in Latvia. Very warm welcome, Anis, and please do come and join us. Dejan Cvetkovic, Regional Technology Officer at Microsoft Central and Eastern Europe. Dejan, very warm welcome. Chris Sherwood, Head of Public Policy at the Allegro Group, the biggest e-commerce platform in Central and Eastern Europe. A very warm welcome, Chris. Good to have you with us. Eirini Zaferatou, Director of Public Policy at Amazon EU. And Artur Waliszewski, Regional Business Director, Central and Eastern Europe at Google from Poland. Very warm welcome to both of you as well. I should mention, ladies and gentlemen, we did hope to have another high-level guest on this panel, Michael Damberg, Minister for Enterprise and Innovation of Sweden. He really wanted to be in this session, but you may be aware that today is also a day of a royal visit by the King and Queen of Sweden, who are gracing Vilnius with their presence. So he had to go and attend that, but he will be speaking this afternoon later on at 4:30 in a session in Hall 4.2, so you're very welcome to that. So, very warm welcome. I've asked our panel not to make any opening statements. We're going to dive straight in. I've got a few questions just to get them started, and then I will come out to all of you with the microphone. And as I say, if you prefer to tweet your comment or question, we are monitoring that as well. So let us jump straight in. And Tony, if I can ask you, as you dreamed up this event, what made you want to do it? Why for you is today so important? And what do you see? What will this truly connected world that the Commission Vice President is working so hard to bring about, what will it look like, and what's the challenge to get there? A thought on that, if you would.
I think the main thing is we need to switch on. At the moment, we haven't switched on, and we're not with the times, especially in Lithuania, where we need to make a lot of progress, as the Commissioner said, with e-health, with e-prescription, with e-government. We're very far behind. We're also far behind with startups. My dream is for Lithuania to be a startup hub, and for this region, and to help the whole region, all around us, as a safe place to come and start something huge to change the world. So that's my dream, that there would be some startups that could change the world, like there's been in America and other countries. So I know that's the dream to have an open government, that's an open platform where everyone can participate. That's very important. Startup hubs are very important. And to do that, we need to bring in some very smart people still. So I'm very happy that we have sponsors like Microsoft, Google, Amazon here with us and helping us to move forward, because we need help. We need help from the Commission, we need help from the big corporations of the world to really make the leap forward, which we can really do. We're losing a lot of people to immigration, and that's very important to stop.
Okay. Arnis, we're not switched on. Would you agree? And if we're beginning to identify what we need to do, the Commission, the EU setting out a roadmap, what for you is the big challenge if we are to make that transition and switch ourselves on?
Oh, I remember you asking me this, more or less the same question in February this year when there was
answer
a
changed?
Latvian presidency. And I answered that time that the biggest challenge for the digital single market is 28 smart and proud nations who cannot agree. And well, now our presidency is over, I can say that it's not hopeless since we managed to get, for instance, the roaming charges abolition. but still it's slow and painful and takes a lot of compromises. And I would still claim that there is a lack of real digital leadership between politicians in European member states.
Thank you. We'll come back on that, and I'd like to get a reaction from you a little bit later if I could on that, Commissioner. But from an industry perspective, Dejan, from Microsoft's perspective, do you agree that we are not yet switched on? And what for you, if you do, what's the biggest challenge we face to get switched on?
Well, we need to switch from where we are. Is it on, or is it like a single step towards being on? That's for us to determine. At the end of the day, what we heard is a great dream. And the dream is possible, at least from the technology perspective. Technologies are there. At least 50% of the people in this audience would agree with this. And then we have Brussels. And at the end of the day, I would like us as the private sector to encourage Brussels to work with them in the true public-private partnership in order to change the policies, regulations, and laws and really enable the foundation for the digital single market. Because a lot of laws and regulations were written in the 80s when internet was nowhere, right? I mean, we need this free data flow between the countries of EU to have a true digital single market. But still in many countries in Europe, there is a requirement for the governments to keep the data in the countries, which really doesn't make sense, you know, from the today's perspective and from the potential of the today's technologies. Second thing, many countries, many procurement processes, many cultures, many technologies do not talk to each other, do not interoperate. Interoperability and standardization is the key thing here as the second thing. And then ubiquitous connectivity, definitely like having that last mile of connectivity towards every single household, every single citizen in the European Union and the neighboring countries as well will foster the foundation for the digital single market. So those are the things that at least we as a technology company would like to work with other technology companies and Brussels in order to enable the market.
And that last point about the infrastructure, the broadband coverage that you talked about so much, Commissioner, big question there, who's going to pay for it? You talked about collaboration with the private sector. How do we mobilize that investment in infrastructure? We'll come back to that in a moment. I just want to get a first thought from the others. Chris, what does this brave new world look like? You've been part of that revolution through all of your companies with us here today. And what's the biggest challenge to realize the dream, as Dejan just put it?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is to switch to a digital-first mindset, really to be thinking about digital first when we think about our education systems, when we think about government investments, when we think about policies which are too often protectionist and anti-American instead of actually being globally minded and digitally minded. We have to be much more optimistic about our youth today and their capability and capacity for innovation and creating world-changing things. And I would like to say that the term that I use to think of this generation is Generation D, Generation Digital and Data-enabled, Data-empowered. So we really need to empower Generation D in order to make the most of this new world.
Thank you very much. And again raises this huge question about the skills that we have. The European Union has a digital skills agenda to try and make sure that all of you have the skills you will need. And as you talked about the need for smart people, how do we make sure we got the smart people, we keep the smart people, and we turn them into entrepreneurs as well as skill? We'll come back on that. Hang on. Just raising questions for your thoughts. I want to just bring our other panelists in before we do that. Irini, from your perspective, I mean, 415 billion euro, it's out there. It's ours for the taking. What is the challenge to seize on that and make the most of the opportunities that arise? There should be, yeah, you've got Mike.
Yes, now, I come from a Greek island, and I can see how the power of digital and online transforms the local economy and the local society. Now, we do have Greek artisans who are now starting to sell since last summer on Amazon's marketplace, and we do have 85 Lithuanian businesses and startups who are now selling through Amazon's marketplace and exporting throughout the EU. Now, obviously, putting the D in front of the digital single market and making it digital does encounter alleviating more obstacles, and these are obstacles that relate to harmonization of laws, to taxation, to making a bigger and better choice for all to buy everything on the online shops as they do offline. But we at Amazon, we have operated in a single market, and since we first established 17 years ago, we did view the space as a big one economic space, and we have had 28 warehouses around the EU that all work like a one network, very much.
Thank you very much. Artur, from your perspective, do you see the challenges in the same way as those already identified by the panel, or is there something else you would highlight?
Yeah, so first of all, I think it shouldn't be that hard to have digital single market. And let me explain. It shouldn't be that hard. Yeah, so let me explain. So technology was made as a single market. Yeah? Imagine that we want to unify Europe in a way that we all speak the same language. Yeah? It would be hard. Yeah? It's a couple of thousands years of tradition, language is part of our culture. To convince people to switch to one language suddenly would be really hard. Yeah? But if you look at technology, it was never designed like that. Yeah? Internet or any other technology was not evolving separately in 28 countries, and right now we have to unify it. It was created as a unified platform. Yeah? So the barriers that we have are actually created barriers. Yeah? It is not something what originates from the technology from the very beginning. We just create those barriers. Yeah? So if we just switch and think that way, that okay, let's don't disturb. If this technology is designed for free flow of information, for free access to information, for democracy, for easiness, for fluency, for smoothness, let's just make it happen and don't disturb. Yeah, that's my first observation. Second one is that let's think for a moment for whom it is the most important. And believe me, it is not that much problem for companies like Google or Facebook or Microsoft or even Allegro or others. Yeah? Those guys are big. They can handle. They have enough money, they have enough people, they can handle complicated market. It is problem for startup from Lithuania to really go and grow quickly, because for them to adjust their business model, their legal structure, their capacity to 28 countries, this is hard. Yeah? And the same is about countries. Yeah? For big countries, they are big, influential, powerful. They can manage in this very hard and difficult environments. But for smaller countries, it's very hard. Yeah? So I think the most important is that young people, smaller companies, smaller countries, those guys has to unite together, and they need to stick to these principles that market should be open, available, and unified, because it is their main interest, and they are the ones who will benefit the most.
Thank you. We're going to have a session later on in the professional strand of this event talking about startups and how to help them make the most. Mr. Vice President, if I could come back to you, the dream is possible. It's not hopeless, Arnis said right at the beginning, but it is slow and it is painful. Why, if it's not so hard, we just have to do it, why is it so slow and painful, or why has it been? And just could I also pick up on the point about the private sector, because Dejan was saying, you know, work with us, we need to work on this together. Let me put it very simply, what do you want from those guys? How can they help you realize this dream?
I can agree with all what was said already here this morning. And I would like to say that we already got strong support from coming from private sector, from our panelists also, to create this digital single market strategy at first in the European Union. So who will benefit from this digital single market in the European Union? I would like to say everybody. We all will benefit. But why it's so complicated? And this answer is also quite clear. There is a lot of different interests, vested interests, some interests, they are not even so much vested anymore, and it's quite complicated to change existing business model. But we have to do this about startups. Once again, we have to ask from ourselves, why our startups, our smart brains, they have to move out from the European Union to the United States to scale up? Why Spotify, which was created in Sweden, had to move out from the European Union to the United States to scale up? Why it's so complicated to scale up here in the European Union? And then my answer is we have to create a digital single market in the European Union. Sorry to say, but we have to say that we have the single market already, but this single market is not here in the European Union. Even 57% from all those transactions taking place in our internet, they are between the European citizens and companies and US companies and citizens. Then 39% just inside of one single member state, and then 4% it's cross-border between different EU member states. So, and somebody is still talking about data localization in one single member state. It's dead end.
So, and two staggering statistics, 4%, as you say, European business, and only 15% of shoppers now shopping online across borders, only 7% of small businesses selling their services and goods across. So why is this happening? And if I can throw another statistic at you, you said, why do the smart brains, the startups, have to go to the US? Only 7 of the top internet companies in the world come from Europe. Why is it? What is holding us back? Anybody, please. Irini, please.
Right. Well, let me challenge that statement.
Okay.
I do not think that the European Union doesn't work, and I do think that we have great brains, great startups, and great businesses, small, medium enterprises. And I see that there's been a huge amount of investment also happening in Europe, both in infrastructures and by companies like mine, and we have grown and prospered thanks to the European single market and to the European Union. So I think there's a great potential, and I think we can still do more, but we do not have to think that we're lagging behind all the time. I think on the global scale, we just need to be able to grow the startups into scale in the European Union, but we have to think of this as a partnership with the United States and with other regions of the world.
Tony.
Yeah, I think there's two main things. The first thing is, I think, fear. And if you compare San Francisco to Paris, and you look at the Uber situation, where everyone's very welcoming for Uber to be there, and even taxi drivers are saying it's great, we have more business than ever, and Paris, where we arrest the CEOs and the leaders of the company. So it's a wonderful startup that's worth 50 billion. And then we go to another reason. America is already a single market. America is already a massive capital market with the NASDAQ. That means you can list your company, you can start a startup. So we have to admit that we do have shortages, and America has a bigger competitive advantage for these new age businesses to move forward very fast. And we must all work together to correct this imbalance to be able to compete, or we will continue to lose Spotify and others to this single market that's very well capitalized, that you can list and get real equity and interest in your business that you've developed.
Okay, thank you very much. Dan, and then Chris.
One more thing that we have to admit is it's 28 countries here. 28 countries, 28 different cultures, mentalities. It's fragmented market, again, as opposed to the United States. And this is the reason why I want to underline once again, it is the private sector that needs to encourage administration to open up, to work with us to unleash the potential of the newest technologies like cloud computing. Microsoft is representing there, Amazon, Google. We are all, as industry, supporting this. What's the issue here? The issue is trust in the new technologies. There's no trust in the new technologies. And you know, I cannot blame anybody for the lack of trust, except, again, for us in private sector that need to work with public sector and really promote that trust, encourage people, prove that the new technologies are there to deliver the public good to the citizens, to the businesses, to the employees in Europe, right? So that's the thing that we need to work on. Trust in the technologies that would unlock the barriers that are there simply because we operate under older laws and regulations.
And it's interesting you talk about trust, because nearly 2/3 of consumers feel more confident about buying in their own member state. They'll go online, but they don't want to buy cross borders. They have all sorts of concerns. We have concerns about, and I know, Commissioner, you want to come in on this question of the Safe Harbor Agreement with the US. They have concerns about the way their data is used, lots of concerns. You feel that is one of the key things. Chris, you wanted to come in here.
Yeah, we use policy in Europe as industrial policy. We try and support our industries. And I understand that, it makes sense. But we also need to do that with a sense of confidence about Europe. I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, Jackie, but maybe the audience would like to shout out at me the name of the country where Angry Birds comes from. Finland.
Correct.
What about Candy Crush? Sweden, correct. What about Spotify? Also Sweden. Deezer, France. BlaBlaCar, France. These are among the world's most exciting tech companies. They're European. We shouldn't feel that this is somehow some kind of that the internet is somehow an American preserve. No, Europe is good at the internet, and we can be even better if we stop thinking about it as something which is American.
But I think the point, Arnis, and perhaps a thought from you on this, point the Commissioner was making, yes, a lot of them start here, but do they stay here? Do we keep that entrepreneurship? Do we keep those skills, all that enormous talent that we've got represented in this room today? How do we keep it here rather than exporting it effectively?
This is the thing about ability to scale up fast. Yeah. And this is the area where we should do more in order to help startups to scale up. And there's one step already made in this digital single market strategy about VAT, which is a big problem for startups. Yeah. But probably there can be more done in order to make better conditions for the startups at the moment when they are still small, to help them get stronger and scale up.
So that's where you would put the focus. You wanted to come in on the Safe Harbor Agreement, then I will come out to all of you to see your questions. Please, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you very much. Safe harbor is not my favorite topic, but since yesterday everybody is talking about safe harbor.
Can you explain to people what it is?
Yeah, just yesterday we got this court ruling from the European Court of Justice saying that safe harbor is almost null and void. So what is safe harbor? Everybody, because a lot of schoolboys and schoolgirls, they are taking part in this event. I would like to explain it using quite simple wording. As Albert Einstein said, if you cannot say it simply, you don't know it well enough. So, what is safe harbor? In the European Union, we got our first data protection directive in the year 1995, and according to this data protection directive, it was allowed to transport data outside from the European Union to the third countries on basis of contracts, and in case this third country was adequate country. But about the United States, it was so difficult to say is it adequate or not, because they didn't have regulations covering all the country dealing with data protection. In different states, different rules, and that's why we started to negotiate, and in the year 2000 we agreed in safe harbor. In standards, American companies, they promised to follow, and then we said in the European Union that this is adequate now, this safe harbor, and it was allowed to transport data to the United States.
But in the year 2013, we remember because of what? We got an understanding that safe harbor is not safe. And then we started to negotiate once again with Americans, and we almost concluded those negotiations already, and yesterday, or the day before yesterday, we got this court ruling.
Yep.
So, and now, what we have to do? We have to go on with our general data protection reform in the European Union, and all the further developments they have to be based on reformed data protection rules in the European Union. Secondly, we have to work closely together with American authorities to find a solution. And thirdly, we have to provide some guidelines to our businesses, big businesses. They can live without safe harbor agreement also, but I'm afraid our small and medium-sized companies, they will face with some kind of difficulties, and that's why those guidelines to smaller businesses will be definitely needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Artur, just on this question, I'm going to steal that because I'm coming out to all of you in a moment. On this question of whether Europe, we've got some disagreement on the panel, some saying actually we're talking ourselves down. We have some of the big stars of the world, others saying, yeah, but they have to go to America to scale up. How optimistic or pessimistic are you about the environment for the entrepreneurial?
Okay, so let's be very clear. We have companies originating from Europe that were successful globally. That's true. But do you know company originating from Europe that first was successful in European Union and then went to the world? Spotify or others are not example like that. Spotify or others are companies that some smart people in Europe, thanks to the fact that technology is in fact global, set up a company that is operating in the United States from the very beginning and in many other markets. So it is not exactly the same as if you take American company that succeed in US first and then they go to the world. So it's
so
not
if
exactly
we're
the
not
same,
succeeding in Europe first, why not?
So let's be clear, yeah? Technology, again, my point is that technology, fortunately, is very universal, and technology creates a platform for companies to thrive across the world. Yeah? So you can be company from Lithuania that can go to this or another platform and succeed globally. Yeah? You can be a creator from Latvia and you can go to YouTube and you can have your viewers from US or China or Japan and you can succeed. Yeah? So fortunately technology is there. But environment in Europe to set up a company in Poland or Czech Republic and then after 6 months to be a successful company across 28 borders, not much. It's super hard, and we don't have that many examples that it is happening.
I want to come back in our discussion on the question of, you showed, the Commission Vice President showed a slide with the bubbles where we all were on the spectrum, and indeed the index that the Commission has does show high-ranking performers, middle and lower, and I want to really ask, what do you think makes some countries, some regions more internet savvy, more, in a moment, I'm going to get the audience first, more entrepreneurial, and to what degree can the leaders, if you like, those who've been at the forefront of the revolution so far, to what extent can others copy their successes, or is it to do with a whole ecosystem in different countries that is very different? Put that thought with you. Let's see if there are any questions from our audience. Does anybody have a question for me? And if, while you're thinking, you'll need to wave quite hard. I'm just going to go over, and Warren's been monitoring the Twitter sphere. Warren, what are people saying?
So there's lots of general comment at the moment, but there's a little trend coming along here, and I think I'll just put it this way. Can you transform all citizens into digital natives within the speed of tech evolution? So what's coming up here is the generational thing. So people are asking about e-health services, for example. Can they convince the older generations? This is a common theme that we're getting through on Twitter.
Can they convince me to throw away my paper that I am still clutching, if I can put it a different way? So that point about the digital mindset that Chris talked about, that is absolutely central. Any others while I'm here? Does anybody? And could you please introduce yourself and please be brief? Thank you, sir.
Vytautas Vitkauskas, Infobalt Association, Lithuania. Discussion I found was very nice, and we as association also have long years experience working with the political parties in Lithuania. So really what is the current situation, what is showing, political will on the Europe level we have. Then we are coming to a little lower level, local countries, political will. Then here we are finding that this political will a little weak. Then we are coming to the installation level of e-services. And here we are facing the bureaucratic resistance. We are living in the revolution era. You remember 100 or 200 years ago when mechanical equipment was introduced in manufacturing, a big resistance. The same here. So my proposal, maybe it is sense to think about financial instruments that will be delivered to the bureaucratic level for those guys to be interested, to get higher salaries.
Incentives to do it.
If they are switching to the paperless world.
Thank you.
Still now the paper is the king.
Thank you very much. And that links very much to the how do we get the older folks, not old, older, to turn on to this revolution. Anybody else want to come in with a comment or question? Or let's put that one to our panel, and then we'll come back to the question of what countries and regions can learn from each other. Please, Mr. Vice President, you wanted to come in, and then Tony. The digital mindset. How do we create it? There's one there. Yeah, sorry. You have, and I'll give you that one. How do we create that digital mindset? How do we switch it on and link that to the skills issue, if you would?
I think we have to provide more digital services to our people, and one day people will understand how beneficial and how comfortable those services really are. I don't think there is a huge difference between younger people and elderly people. The question was about e-healthcare, about e-prescriptions. Now I can agree with you. Paper is king in many of the EU member states, even in meaning of e-prescriptions, but even in those countries where e-prescription is highly developed. In Sweden, 100% of medical doctors are issuing e-prescriptions. In neighboring country, in the country I know best, in Estonia, once again, 100% of medical doctors, they are issuing e-prescriptions. But when Swedish people will travel to Estonia and they would like to get some pharmaceuticals, paper is needed, because paper is king. When Estonians will travel to Sweden, the same story. To Greece, the same story. 90% of medical doctors in Greece, they're issuing e-prescriptions. But mutual recognition of digital identities more broadly, this is a real question in the European Union. We have to give digital identities to our people, and then we can also mutually recognize those digital identities. I will waste 30 seconds more to describe how awful this situation really is. 20,000 Estonians working in Finland, they have to bring once per year a document from Estonian public register. So it means that they have to take ferry or airplane to travel to Estonia, to stay in queues, to get paper with a signature, and then back to ferry and back to Finland. And then, as we all know, civil servants in Finland, they are really good people. Without making any mistakes, they will type this information from papers once again into their computers, and this information which was digital in Estonia will be digital once again in Finland. On the 21st century. Why?
Why, Arne? I mean, from a government, we'll come back to the private sector in a moment, but why can't we do it in the public sector? Why is this happening?
I would like to challenge this saying about the elderly people who are not willing to step in the digital environment. Actually, in Latvia, for instance, we are running a lot of training programs specifically aimed at elderly people, and they are so eager actually to get in and use this environment. But we have noticed another problem as regards to the younger generation. The younger generation, they are experts in social networking and online gaming, etc. But when it comes to using government services in digital environment, then there is a kind of mental barrier. mistrust the government because they don't trust that the government is able to offer the service in the same intuitive and easy to use way as they used to work with the social networks.
So it's got to work properly, otherwise...
It's a lot of work for CIOs and governments to show that the governmental services can be as easy as the commercial ones.
On this question of digital mindsets, and if I can link two things together, because we don't have that much time, digital mindsets, entrepreneurial mindsets. And can I just ask, we're here, biggest ever event in this region. What is your perception of how digitally minded and how entrepreneurial people are here, and linking it to this question of differences between different member states in their performance? What explains that, and does that give us the key to unlocking the digital mindset? Irini's grabbed her mic, and then Chris, you raised this point, so I'd like to come to you on that.
Right, I think on the digital mindset, I think we need to start with education and, for example, encourage a lot digital reading. Now, I'm a mother of a 7-year-old, and instead of playing apps or games on the tablet, I'm encouraging him to read books. So reading books on the Kindle, however, to buy a book, from a VAT perspective, it costs much more than buying a physical book. So here's something that we can immediately do to encourage digital reading and cultural diversity and get young people onto young reading. Okay. And on the entrepreneurial side, I would say we just need to get encouraging our startups and our companies to sell cross-border. And this is what we do at Amazon through the online marketplace platform. This is exporting throughout in all countries of the European Union. And I think we can do that. And we can keep doing that. I do not think we have other fundamental problems preventing us from getting entrepreneurship on site.
Chris, and I know you want to come in, Tony, after that, but you identified this as the most important challenge in your opening remarks. How do we do it for you? Do we need some sort of incentives? What is the key to unlocking this? And as you're operating in Central and Eastern Europe, how digitally minded, how entrepreneurial do you think this region is?
Well, I want to come back to this Generation D thing. So I was in 4 countries yesterday on my way to Vilnius, and in each of these countries,
it's a hell of a journey.
Yes, I've met digital entrepreneurs. I see the cultural differences between these countries, but actually, when you meet people who are in the digital entrepreneurship space, they're all young, they're all dynamic, they're all globally minded. None of them thinks about my national market, my European market. They think globally, and that's what we need to do. We need to listen to the youth who think globally and digital.
Thank you. Tony, you wanted to come in.
I think we have to start very early. So I came to know Coder Dojo, and the CEO of Coder Dojo is here, and I'm so happy that this Coder Dojo is coming to Lithuania. It's a free way for young kids to learn how coding works and to start coding very early. And I think that's very important, because I think the educational system is still behind the curve, way behind the curve. And we're educating our kids for too long, and they're not really connected, and they're not really interacting with what they're learning. So we have to get them more connected, more interested, and more integrated into the future. And I think if we can achieve this very early, this would be a huge revolution for everyone.
Thank you. Dan, you wanted to come in, and then Arturo, a thought on this.
There's no question about the education being a requirement today in order to build the leaders of the future that are technically savvy and have the digital agenda in their mind. But I also want to use Estonia as an example of the country that really leapfrogged in the digital mindset. You know, when they gained the independence from Soviet Union, they were not a developed country, and they asked themselves, what do we do? And they decided to focus on the information technology. And today, Estonia is one of the best examples in Europe of the innovation in the information technology. So what I want to say here, it is the government leadership, it is the president of the country that is capable to talk about digital identity, public key infrastructure, cybersecurity, and things like that. It is the mindset that public sector created and really encouraged the private sector to invest into the information technology, so they built that industry and increased the GDP.
Okay. Thank you. Arturo, on this question of mindset, and then I'd like to ask you how you did it, because you were Prime Minister in that time of that leapfrogging, and what others can learn from that. But please, Arturo.
Yeah, so to build on what was already said, leapfrogging is super important. And I like to look at this in this very interesting way. So we have to understand that what is driving information technology, all these trends that are driving this technology are exponential trends. It is well-established theory right now. So capacity of devices, computing power, storage power, bandwidth power, all of these, and price to performance ratio, all of those are exponential trends. And it's very hard to think exponentially. Our brains are not used to it. We rather think in a linear way. But if you really understand exponential trends, you understand one thing. You cannot catch up with exponential trend just going on the track that somebody already did before you. And it's pure mathematics, but you cannot be fast enough to just copy paste and go behind someone. You have to leapfrog, you have to go ahead. This is the only way to grow fast enough. And second thing about digital mindset that is probably more towards regulatory ecosystem and so on is, what's your attitude towards change? And this is something what really can distinguish between friendly and non-friendly environment for innovation. If you hear, for example, that there is few guys who thought that, well, taxi system is not working very well, and we could do it better. And your first thought is, wow, did they achieve it? Is it really better? Can we see it? Wow, this is fantastic. Can we make it more popular and so on? This is nice attitude towards change. But if your attitude is it legal? It is regulated system. Should we stop them? This is different attitude.
So it's where you start from.
So how you think about change is very, very important.
I will come back to you in a moment, Mr. Vice President, about Estonia's example and whether we can learn from it for other countries. But just another opportunity if anybody does want to come in. I see one over here, so let me come round to you, sir. And as I say, if you could introduce yourself, and we don't have much time, so please be brief. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Danielius Tesiulis. I work with startups in Lithuania. We are talking about having more entrepreneurs in Europe. But at the same time, most of the government spending on encouraging entrepreneurship goes to universities and non-digital subjects. So how can we increase the percentage of funding distributed to digital entrepreneurs? Because we cherish those success stories the most, but most of the money actually go to hard sciences.
Thank you very much indeed. A very pertinent and precise question. Any last ones before I come back? Okay, where's one? Sorry, I don't see. Can you wave like this a bit so I can see you? Where is it? Ah, yes, I've got you. I've got you. Hang on a second. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you very much. My name is Uliana. I'm working for the Baltic Times, and I want to ask you one really very simple question. Probably you already talked about this, but what kind of time span are we talking about? When exactly the European Union will be able to simplify the processes for digital entrepreneurship? Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm tempted to ask the Commission Vice President, you have a 5-year term responsible for this dossier. You're 1 year in. How far do you think you'll have got by the end of that 5 years? When is this dream going to come true? A thought on that, a thought on the funding, and if you would, in the interest of time, on Estonia's example, and can we learn from it?
This last question is the most complicated question because I don't think Estonia is perfect enough to teach others using our own example. And secondly, I would like to say that I cannot see any real differences between digital developments we had in all the 3 Baltic states. Almost the same, and to be honest, we are doing well. So, but some decisions in a quite early stage in Estonia, they were made in Estonia, they were made, you know, at right time, and they were good decisions. So,
no legacy is similar for all the three Baltic states. When our banks started to act as commercial banks once again, we didn't have any valuable memories about traditional banking, about checkbooks, etc. We just took the best technology, and then when our banks started to use internet banking system, those bank transactions they were free of charge, and this was the reason why our people, also elderly people, they started to use internet banking system, because if you don't have to pay, then you have to take it. And now our elderly people, they are quite familiar with the computers. But in Estonia, we decided to give a single digital identity to our people. In fact, Finns implemented their smart ID cards even a year earlier than we did it in Estonia. But because it was voluntary based in Finland, only 30,000 Finns started to use those smart ID cards, and because of the fact that it was mandatory in Estonia, everybody had to use those ID cards. But it took for Estonians even 6 years to give the first 1 million digital signatures. And then in the year 2007, we implemented so-called once-only principle on the level of the law. State has right to ask for information from their citizens only once, and then, according to my permission, state has to use this information once again. And it gave real boost on usage of digital identities, digital signatures. Now Estonians are signing more than 1 million times digitally during the week. So, about digital single market, when it will happen?
Yes.
When it will happen? As soon as possible is a concrete answer. But we are in a terrible hurry. We are in a terrible hurry because we don't have those 415 billion euros per year just to waste for. And that's why we are in a terrible hurry. We would like to make at least 2 proposals, legislative proposals even during this year. I'm talking about contracts and about portability of the content. Those proposals we would like to make during this year, and all the other proposals during the next year. We are in a terrible hurry. We have to hurry up.
Okay, we are almost out of time, but I just want to put you all on the spot. And we've talked, Arto, you said at the beginning, and I'll start with you and then work down the line. The Vice President said, you know, we're at the starting point. You said this when you unveiled the strategy. This is the starting point, not the finishing line. If we want to reach that finishing line, and you said it's not hard, we just need to make it happen. One priority, let's say within the lifetime of this commission and the lifetime of Mr. Ansip's responsibility for this, one thing you think has to happen to make it happen, to switch. What for each of you, and you have just under a minute each, what would your top priority for action be? Please, Arto first, we'll come straight down the line, all the way down. Thank you.
I can only repeat again. For me, the priority would be that everyone who is decision maker in Europe has a positive attitude to change. That's the most important.
Okay, thank you very much. Irini.
For me, it is doing everything we can to encourage startup and small, medium enterprises entrepreneurship.
So that's where the focus has to be if we're going to make
progress. Cross-border code.
Yeah. Okay, and anything concrete in that area? Anything specific you think they need to do?
Yes, indeed. So simplifying the taxation laws, that's the biggest impediment right now for people to sell cross-border. Liabilities and having to deal with several administrations. That would be the biggest obstacle, I would say.
Thank you very much. Chris, for you.
In internet companies for several years now, we've been talking about mobile first, and that is designed to make sure that the company does everything with the mobile app first, or the smartphone delivery mechanism for the product or service first. Europe needs to do that for digital. All the policies that come out of the European Union should be digital first. We should be thinking systematically about how to make Europe more digitally fit.
Thank you. And Taras, you started by saying, let's go for it. What's the first thing we need to do to go for it?
I think we need to be very brave. If we're very brave and we can make the switch, that's very necessary for us to become digital. We should have a very, very clear target with exact dates of when Europe will be a single digital market. this is it. This is the achievement. This is the goal. I think the Vice President's very well aware of it, and he's really pushing forward. The system is very complicated, very large, but if we show no fear and we're brave, we will switch and win.
And very concrete goals and timelines. Dejan, your priority of priorities.
So for me, it's the harmonization across the member states on 3 topics: paperless,
can you hold the mic?
No legacy policy, and digital ID.
Thank you very much indeed. Arnis.
Well, maybe to continue from this and returning to what I said in the beginning, it's about leadership. My priority would be to get the prime ministers buy-in in this digital thinking. Let's say if we can have digital summit of all prime ministers of 28 countries once per half a year or so, and nail down, let's say, 3 priorities as suggested by prime ministers, and that would be real thrust.
So we need more Andrus Ansips out there around the EU table. Mr. Vice President, your priority, you highlighted the pillars, you highlighted the 16 actions. If you had to point to one of them as the most important, or the place to start, you said where the legislation is, what would it be?
I'm not ready to pick up only one aim from all those 16 aims. We have to reach all those 16 aims if we would like to create digital single market in the European Union. So it's practically impossible to pick up something and then to hope that one lovely day we will get this single market. This will be quite difficult job. No easy victories, it will be an uphill struggle, but if people they would like to create this digital single market in the European Union, we will do it. So let's do it together. But if I have to pick up something, then I would like to pick up something outside of the digital single market strategy. It's once again, I would like to talk about digital identities and about mutual recognition of our digital identities between our member states. It's so important to have those real digital identities everybody can trust. I'm not just talking about e-prescriptions or e-elections. By the way, people in Estonia, they can vote electronically since the year 2005 already, and it works. And those are not only youngsters who are using e-elections, but also elderly people. It works, no digital divide in this meaning. But for financial services, for example, e-identification is extremely important. In all the areas, we can see how important it is to have digital identities everybody can trust. And full implementation of e-IDAS directive, it's really important for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, the slogan of this event, as I mentioned earlier, is Live Your Passion. Thank you very much to our panel for your passion and for your conviction that it can be done, that we can go for it, as Antanas said at the beginning. Will you join me in thanking our panel, and particularly Mr. Vice President, thank you so much for coming and being with us today. Thank you very much indeed. And do keep those questions and comments coming in through Twitter. Just a couple of practical announcements before we move on. If you are in the youth section of this event, do not move. Stay here. We're going to move into the next session with a greeting to you all from the Minister for Science and Education in just a couple of minutes. If you are in the professional section, there are 2 sessions now running in parallel. One on startups, we talked about it a lot, and the other on smart cities. They're over on the professional side the other way. There is no coffee break, so make your way straight there. And I do wish you a very successful conference, a very successful couple of days. Enjoy it, and I hope you get lots of inspiration from it. Thank you very much.